Hello and welcome to the COVID-19 update from Verve Group, number 4 in the series so far. I'm Marc and joining me today again is Matthew Carberry. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Loader. Welcome to everyone out there watching us.
Yes, look, the response has been pretty good to these videos. I think most of our clients have been finding them quite helpful. So yeah, hopefully people get something out of this. But Matt, today I guess the first one I was wanting to speak to everyone about, and I'll just share the screen.
Was the lovely JobKeeper, I believe, Mark, that's getting a lot of press at the moment, and obviously going to be in news.
It is. Thank you, Matt. I mean, I think if anything, this has probably caused a little bit of anxiousness amongst people. I think everyone was really keen to get this going, but unfortunately for the minute, and I'll talk about this in a moment, is that all you can do is register. So Parliament is sitting on Wednesday, and with any luck it'll be through relatively quickly, but if they to and fro on this, it could be a very long night. So at the latest we should all know by Thursday morning what is happening, but yes, at the moment it hasn't passed through Parliament, and we're waiting for Parliament to sit on Wednesday. So fingers crossed for Thursday morning. There seems to be a bit of a difference of opinion between the two parties and how this would be administered. They both agree on the policy, but it's how it's to be implemented that they're not quite agreeing on at the moment. The government wants to administer this by changing the Fair Work Act with a sunset clause in 6 months' time, whereas the opposition is looking to administer this through the Fair Work Commission and amend all the awards and enterprise agreements. So hopefully they can sort that out over the next day or two before they get to Parliament. But that's what's causing a little bit of a commotion in Canberra. There has been a bit of a win for charities and some not-for-profits. So be careful about that. It's not for all not-for-profits. But there's a bit of a concession there, and that these entities only have to show a decline in turnover of 15% to be eligible for the JobKeeper. So charities that employ people only need to show 15%. So much easier, excuse me, much easier for them to qualify for the JobKeeper update. And finally, as a reminder, if you haven't registered, this is important, really important. Because once this gets past Parliament, the ATO will have emails to send out to everyone, and it'll be those emails that will give you the access to the online application. But you must register, and there's the website there. If you can't remember that, just go to ato.gov.au and you'll see the JobKeeper link, and then just keep clicking until you get to the point where you register. So if you haven't done so, please do so as soon as you can, because on Thursday, hopefully when legislation's passed, the online applications will start rolling out and people will be able to start applying for it.
Very good, Mr. Loader. The other one that's getting a little bit of press and people are asking plenty of questions is around the rent relief and landlords, both commercial and residential. That's
right, Matt. Commercial rent only at the moment. The Morrison government did start off by saying that landlords and tenants should sit down and talk this out. Now, in a commercial sense, this hasn't really worked. I've seen examples of both the landlord and the tenant trying to pull the wool over the eyes. So it's not really working with the sit down and sort this out type of methodology. So the Morrison government has gone to the industry bodies and said develop a code of practice. And oops, I'll get this right. So yeah, the industries are putting, the industry bodies are putting together a code of practice. Hopefully that's released this week, and it will then give us all some comfort of what we're working with. The government, when this practice does come out, will enshrine this in law. So again, Parliament will sit and make this legal. And then we will, as commercial landlords and as commercial tenants, we should all then have a framework to work within. It is, this is a prediction, so please don't take this as gospel, but it's felt or widely regarded as this code of practice will have rent reductions for commercial tenants will be in line with the decline in turnover. So if a business suffers a 50% decline in turnover, they'll possibly get a 50% rent reduction. And so, again, you will have to show proof. There'll be, I guess, lots of angles around what you need to show in order to prove that your turnover has declined. So bear that in mind, but let's not jump to any conclusions just yet. We'll wait for the code of practice to come out, hopefully this week, to provide landlords and tenants with some certainty that, it's causing, this one here is causing a lot of grief. There's certainly tenants that are false, not being completely honest with their landlords, and their landlords who are saying, no, pay or else. So there's quite some strong arm tactics going on out there at the moment. So we'll see. Now, Matthew, in terms of the market, there's a lot of fear and panic out there at the moment. People are obviously wondering, should I sell? Should I get, cash up, and all that sort of thing. So what have you got, some tips or some advice for people in relation to, if they've got investments in the market at the moment, what should they be doing?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's obviously quite $1 at the moment for every time I've had a phone call asking what should I do and what's going to happen is probably the big one. But it's probably 30% drop off in the last 3-4 weeks. So it's been one of the biggest drops. Which if you have a look here, this is every share market or major ones around the world, and essentially all gone in sync. So it's not just Australia or America. Everyone's dropped back. If we flick back a slide, Mark, the Warren Buffett there, one of the world's greatest investors, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. So as much as it hurts at the moment when people's super or shares have gone down, now is a great buying opportunity. It's cheap when you look at it. And when will the bottom be? I have no idea. If I could pick that, I wouldn't be sitting here. But I think this is only showing January, February and March. That top blue line in January and February is Australian market. So we'd come off 25% gains in 2019 calendar year. So yes, it's been a steep drop, but at the moment you can see the last couple of weeks it's picked up a little bit. So to explain the share market, it's a forward-looking beast. So it looks out the next 6 or 12 months what they think is going to happen. So a lot of the pain that people are starting to go through now, businesses and individuals with job losses, the market's predicted that, and that's why it's dropped so quickly, which has obviously been a shock for many. And when you get your super statements in June this year, the returns might be negative, which they were back in the GFC some 10 or 12 years ago. So we've got an example of probably the last major event that happened like this, which was the GFC. And this graph, it's a bit small, but essentially the light blue line there is if you had all your money in the share market and the drop, and then where it's ended up at the moment, or hasn't obviously got this current drop in there, but people who wrote it out, long-term investors, sat on their hands, ended up pretty well. The dark blue line is people that cashed it out sat in cash for 12 months and then went, okay, I'll put it back in, trying to time the market, which if you're a long-term investor, you can't pick the bottom. That's the issue. You can't pick the top, you can't pick the bottom. So you should just sit on your hands. And the green line is someone that's obviously got fed up with it, panicked, and put it in cash. And you can see what that's done. So, a couple of tips. Generally, you should have a decent cash reserve put away. So to fund the short term. The short term in my world is probably the next 2 or 3 years. So you've got cash there to fund lifestyle, any big ticket expenses. Obviously, we're not travelling at the moment, so there won't be too much spent on travel. But if you're long term, you're going to go through periods like this. It's happened before. All I know is long term, it'll go up. It's happened going back to the 30s, well and truly before my time, just before Mr. Loder's time, I think. But the depression back then, markets went sideways for 5 or 10 years, went up. It happened. Oil crisis, early 70s, 87 happened, GFC, it happened again, crashed, come back. All different causes, the market reacts the same way. So I think when it moves, it'll bounce back. It may take a few years, that's what we don't know. So, but I think the coming months we'll see what's going on. It looks like it's going to be longer rather than be out kicking the footy or out going for dinner by June 30, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, and I'll release a video on it probably later this week, if not early next week, specifically about for our financial planning clients, what's going on, some tips there as well. So stay tuned for that one. Anything final to close on? That's it?
No, that's all from me. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think the upshot with the market there is hold your nerve. That'd be fairly safe to say.
Yeah, I think sit on your hands. Obviously, get advice. I think the worst thing people can do is listen to the barbecue expert. Not that you'd be going to barbecues, but the person that thinks they're an expert. Get some sound advice. Get all the facts and figures so you can make an informed decision. So yeah, so certainly pick up the phone or shoot us an email.
All right, well, that's all from us this week. We'll be putting out another one later this week as well, but everyone stay safe, be kind to each other, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.